What is all? You say we're already starting off. We're already starting off bad. All right. What's going on, guys? Back with another video today. Today I got on my Daybreak Saints Media, collection, inverse collection. If you guys don't know what it is, link down below. Shameless plug, I know. Today we have an interesting video. We're gonna be talking about negative space and the importance of it, which include making your designs look a little bit more cleaner, just essentially more readable in a sense. It makes it a lot more professional in turn by doing so. And yeah, let's just get right into the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. All right, so now we're on Photoshop. Let's talk about real quick about what the actual definition of negative space really is. So essentially, think of negative space as the literal space or the empty pockets within your design, your graphic, or your canvas, or whatever you want to call it, relative to everything else. So what I have on screen right now is a small little layout of something that is a little bit too cluttered. It has really no negative space within it. There's no empty pockets anywhere. I mean, you can kind of see a little bit of division between things, but there's just not enough. And to me, this looks a little bit too congested. So at the end of the video, we're going to kind of just work with this layout, and we're just going to kind of clean it up a little bit. So when it comes to typography, there's essentially two different ways that you can kind of work with negative space and make it a little bit easier for people to understand what you're writing essentially. So on the left, I have a paragraph that I took from my own personal brand book. Essentially, it's from my vision for what I want Saints Media to be, my personal brand. If you don't know about it, we'll kind of talk about that in a later video. It's the exact same paragraph from the left and the right, but the only difference is the amount of space between each line. Now, you'll kind of notice on the left, you might feel the need to kind of go back to the same line. You might find yourself reading the same line essentially, and that's because there's just so congested together, so it's essentially very difficult to read. However, on the right, there's a little bit more breathing room. It lessens that chance of you kind of messing up and rereading the same line, or you kind of feel a little like, oh my god, there's like so much going on, I don't know what to do. Like, do I really want to read this right now? It's a lot of words, right? You kind of feel overwhelmed essentially. So in comparison, it's easier to understand. You don't feel as kind of attacked by all these words essentially, and it makes it easier to just read all in all. However, when it comes to typography, and specifically when it comes to paragraphs, you also want to think about, for your own personal brand or your own projects that you're doing, whether or not you want to use all capital letters or not. I personally chose to use them for my own personal brand. However, there is a downside to this. Reason being is because when you use all capital letters in your typography, you essentially make what looks like rectangles for each line. So it also makes it a little bit harder to read essentially. When you use lower cases, they're designed in a way so that you're actually able to, it makes the letters a little bit more unique essentially, so they're actually easier to read essentially. They're not perfect rectangles. They have little dips and curves essentially to them, so technically it's easier on the eye to actually kind of understand what you're reading. So if you're finding it difficult to kind of go through your paragraphs and you find that it's kind of just super cluttered and you're not really liking the way it's going, potentially consider, if you haven't already, using lower cases and not being afraid to use them. I've found for my personal brand, I'm okay with it. I like the look of all capital letters, so I will stick with it, but it's just comes down to personal preference. But I make sure in my own personal designs that I include that kind of spacing between the lines. Lastly, we can see negative space when it comes to logos themselves. Essentially, what I have right now is my own personal logos once again, and on the left I have the logo much larger in the exact same size rectangle, but it's a little bit more bigger compared to the one on the right. Now, if you're following along at home, you can kind of notice, I mean, I think more often than not, people will agree that the one on the right looks a little bit more professional. And the reason being is because it includes that negative space going around the logo itself. It has this ability to breathe a little bit. You don't feel so kind of attacked by the logo essentially. So that's a big component when it comes to using negative space and thinking about your designs on your next coming projects, is start to think about how much space is kind of set around a logo. A logo is very, very important, so you want to make sure that you're highlighting it the best that you can by giving it that spotlight that essentially deserves essentially. All right, so going back to the original layout that we kind of started off with essentially, I created a quick little mock-up of like a home page essentially for my personal brand, with myself on the left side with a nice big image, but then on this right side kind of just super kind of congested. You feel super attacked. There's a lot of information kind of being thrown at you essentially. If you read through it, I think like for the last 3 paragraphs, I just use like random paragraphs that I found off of Google. So if you're actually reading it, kudos to you, but it's probably completely nonsense. The only part that makes sense is the first part. So if you want to go in and read what I put. I don't even know what I put. I just copied and pasted it. So nice little Easter egg for you. Let me know what it says. But essentially what you'll kind of see is a very congested kind of layout. You feel super attacked. You don't really know where to begin, essentially. I mean, you kind of know, but like it's just all in your face, essentially. So this isn't really a good kind of attempt at using negative space. All right, so now I kind of did some alterations to the previous one. You might kind of feel a sense of relief, essentially, compared to the last one. I kept the same image. The only differences I made were mainly on that right side, and that was making the logo a lot smaller. I made the header, the word vision, a lot smaller as well. I took out a lot of the extra kind of fat, essentially, out of the paragraph, kind of explaining the vision, quote unquote. And then I also kind of broke up that line spacing as well. Finally, I made the Explore kind of button, the actual font, or the size of the font essentially, smaller within it. Again, working on that kind of negative space within the button itself. And by doing all of those things, essentially, we get a lot more extra space going on. We feel a lot less congested, a lot less cluttered. Things look a lot more professional. And by just focusing specifically on negative space, essentially, you can make your design 10 times better in the long run. So I highly recommend just make sure to think about a little bit and double check and be absolutely sure if you want to add that extra element or that extra layer within your project, because sometimes you have to think to yourself, is it going to add to the design or is it just going to kind of make it worse, essentially? All right, so that's pretty much going to do it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you guys learned something at the end of the day. Make sure to like and subscribe, and also comment down below what was said in that paragraph. Let me know. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Hope you guys enjoyed. It's been myself, Steven, aka Scream. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys. Laters.